welcome back to Crowning Connections. I'm Jennifer.
And boy, oh boy, do we have a great topic for you today. So Jennifer, or Jen, we want to talk about something that every queen has gone through at some point or another, something that has meant a lot to them. And then they had to do this massive shift or reinvention.
Basically reinventing ourselves, right? Have you ever felt like you had to start over? Like your crown slipped or life just knocked you off of your heels? We have all, at one time or another, experienced something similar to that. So today we're going to share our own personal stories of reinvention, one of many, lessons that we have learned in and out of the pageant world, and then spotlight some other amazing women who did not just bounce back, they bounced back better.
Mhm. I totally agree. It is that power of reinvention we're talking about today. Make sure you grab your journal, you grab your lashes, you grab your heels, because we're definitely going to be walking in someone else's shoes today. Sometimes it's going to be messy, but the end result is going to be beautiful. And the outcome is always better on the other side.
Isn't that one thing that we need to all try to focus on remembering in times that are tough or times of personal loss? Or, it could be anything from maybe a pageant doesn't go the way that we were hoping it was going to. Maybe it's something much more serious, a personal loss in our family, our friend levels, jobs, whatever it is, trying to take the negatives of those lessons and flip them around and use them for something positive, much like our guest last week did.
Who sings that song about Turn Around for Good? I know that's one of your favorites.
It is. I don't think CeCe Winans does a song that I don't like. And also Believe for It. That was my song while my dad was ill. And I still believe that he answered those prayers. I know my dad is not suffering, and even though I selfishly wish he were here with me, he is not. But I have learned, much like our episode today, to take that loss and that personal tragedy and turn it into good and kind of reinvent myself and what I know that I need to go forward and do now.
And that's exactly why we're here, and why we even joined this podcast, is to inspire and uplift others through our stories. Much of our stories are of our viewers and our guests. I know we've scratched the surface about your relationship with your dad and coming out of the triumph over the tragedy of losing him and everything, but why don't you go a little bit deeper into that and kind of talk about you and your journey and what that means?
So, as most of our listeners know, I did lose my dad a couple of years ago to ocular melanoma, which, if you don't know what that is, it's a very, very rare eye cancer. That's something that I knew right off that I would need to advocate for. So I knew the ultimate ending to this story was likely not going to be a good one without God himself intervening. There is no cure for this type of cancer. There's no real treatment for it. There are experimental things that, they try, but it's not anything that, you can say, okay, well, I took the treatment, things look great, and now life is good. So with Dad, he had gone in and he went through some of the early treatments, and we got his first CT scans, and they were NED, or no evidence of disease, which was fantastic. We were thrilled. 30 days later, I got a phone call that they had done another follow-up test for a totally different procedure that they were doing on him. And it turned out that there was suspicious spots on his liver. So he went from no evidence of disease to having a liver with innumerable lesions 30 days later. And so that really started the downward spiral. So I learned that, there are things you can do along the way to try to battle this disease and try to, maybe give yourself a little longer lifespan. And the weird thing is, some people, I personally know people that were diagnosed 15, 20 years ago that still have not metastasized to their liver. And then there are people like my dad and others that, a year after their diagnosis, it's in their liver and beyond. So it's one of those tricky things. But on that note, I knew that I wanted to get involved and make a difference. So I had to try to channel the negativity, the sadness, the grief, and everything into something bigger and something that I could personally do to try to be a voice for other people and try to help other people, because I knew that ultimately that's what my dad would want me to do. And when he passed, he didn't expect me to just lay down and die. So it was hard. But the funny thing from my particular story with this story was so many people thought that I was in some sort of denial. Like I just expected him to miraculously wake up one day and be better. And that's not at all what it was for me. I was very acutely aware of what the likely outcome would be, but I knew that I didn't want to live every day that he had left in that dark, negative space. So I just tried, but there were lots and lots of prayer, wonderful friends like you. I was able to keep going, and it's just a daily put one foot in front of the other. And I think if no matter what your circumstances, if you can just try to focus on that, just hey, you're not running a marathon. It's just one step at a time, 1 hour at a time, one day at a time. And hopefully, you know that we are always here for you. You can always reach out. We'll always be a voice to walk you through it, or an ear to listen if you just need somebody to vent to. So, in a nutshell, that's kind of what I did. And now that's one of my main missions. I just want to spread awareness of ocular melanoma, let people know, hey, you need to get your eyes checked every year, just like you do every other part of your body. And it needs to be with your eyes dilated, because today, a lot of times when you go in, they don't dilate your eyes. It's just, oh, well, we don't really need to unless there's a reason, but you do. If you don't dilate the eyes, the doctors can't clearly see to the back. So there could be something back there, that they're missing. So always, always, always be your own best advocate and insist that, you want these things done. And hopefully everything turns out great. But like most cases, if not, then you want to know about it early, and you want to be able to take care of it head on. So that's kind of what I do now. That's my mission. I go forth and I tell people about this disease, and I try to help people and raise money for, the causes that these people need help with travel, or to be able to get to their treatments. And so that's what I am about today.
Now, you mentioned about going to get your eyes dilated. Is there a recommendation like every other year, every year?
Once a year, when you go have your regular exams, they want you to get your eyes dilated. You can kind of imagine, if you're just looking at a picture, right, on from the outside, you can see what's there, but you don't necessarily have the filters that you need to see deeper. Yes, you need to have your eyes dilated every year when you have your regular routine annual eye exam, because it allows them to see into the back of the eye, where, just doing a regular vision test, they can't necessarily see all of the areas in the back that they need to. And ocular melanoma can form in different parts of the eye. So you want to make sure that your eye exam is comprehensive, and that you know all of your risks. If God forbid there's something there, you would want to be able to hit it early, head on, so that you have the best possible outcomes.
Thank you for sharing that, because I don't think that I realized how important it was to get your eyes dilated. I think I do it every other year because glaucoma runs in my family, so it's something that I have to be aware of. I think they do it every other for me. But I think it's important that they do test. And I know that, going to the eye doctor is not cheap. And so it's kind of expensive to go and even get your eyes looked at, whether or not you need just regular glasses or contacts or whatever. So I think spreading awareness about the importance of eye health and how that will lead into hopefully early detection or possibly prevention is probably a really good thing too. So thanks for sharing.
Absolutely. Always, always. So that's my reinvention story. I know, like me, you've got so many things that you have persevered through and come out stronger and tougher on the opposite side. You haven't just kicked it over and said, forget it. You have tenacity and you persevere. So would you mind sharing one of your favorite moments with us about a time that you reinvented, Lindy?
Sure. So I think one of the first things I can say is that when I was 16, I was actually diagnosed with endometriosis. Back then, I had no idea really what that meant. It was kind of still new it was in its infancy as far as what the medical community would diagnose and say and how it would work and on and on and on. So I basically was on so many different medications off and on. I had to go through treatments. One of the treatments was like every once a month, some were like every week. It just really depended on where I was with that. And for the viewers who may not know what endometriosis is, it's basically scar tissue that grows on the outside of your uterus. It can attach to your bowels, it can attach to your colon, it can attach to wherever it really wants to. Oddly enough, there have been very slight cases, but they've actually found traces of it in people's noses. Yeah, that was kind of interesting. So I went through didn't feel well and I didn't know what to do. I knew it was in part because of the endometriosis. So I took a lot of prying to find a doctor who specialized in this. And when I first went to see her, she was no nonsense. She was like, "Okay, if you're here, you need to listen and do what I tell you because you're not going to get better if you do the same thing." And I was like, "No, I want to get better." I'm like, I was at this point I was in my 20s and like I want to be able to, have a life and spend time with my then boyfriend, who's now my husband. um, and go and do things and just have energy and all of that. So first of all, I had to do a diet cleanup, which was consisted of the South Beach diet, which was basically get rid of fruits and vegetables for 2 weeks and then start slowly adding them back in. So I did that and I actually did really well with that. I had a lot more energy and everything. But the part of the endometriosis that is the scariest for me was I knew when I was little, I wanted to be a mom. There was like nothing more that I wanted in this world than to be a mom. It was something that I don't know. I just grew up. I knew that's what I wanted to do. But from the time I was 16 on, I actually had a doctor tell me at one point that it doesn't matter who it is. If you want to have a kid, you just need to go make a kid happen. I was like,
Yep.
no, that's not true. Like, it's not going to work like that. So fortunately, I didn't take his cuckoo crazy advice.
Cool.
So when I found this doctor, she had been doing a lot of research on this and she was actually a fertility specialist. And she said what she realized there was this correlation between fertility, infertility, and this endometriosis, PCOS, all of these things that wasn't under like one umbrella or under one roof. So with her, I did the diet cleanup, then I had a surgery to clean up all of it, and I did okay. So then I was put back on what they call suppression medication, which basically puts your body through menopause, which brings about a whole other hot flashes and night sweats and all of this. So so I was dealing with that. And after Ryan and I did get married, we waited a while and he was like, we really should try to have kids. I'm like, I don't know if I can right now because every doctor I've said was like, oh, once you hit 25, you're not allowed to have kids anymore, blah, 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 blah. He's like, well, we just need to go see and try. Just like, let's go. So the doctor who I saw, she was like, yep, let's go. If you guys are ready and you're committed, let's get you through all this crazy testing. So we went through a lot of testing. Some of it was definitely not fun at all. It actually brought Ryan and I closer together, which was great too, because he was my biggest support at the time. We found out on Halloween, so October 31st, 2013, that I had a slight chance of being able to get pregnant naturally. The goal was I had 6 months to try, and if I wasn't pregnant after that 6-month period, then I'd have to go back on suppression meds for another 6 months and then try again. Well, I didn't listen to the doctor. at all. So we extended it a little bit beyond. And then I started not completely feeling well. So I ended up going back to her and I'm like, I don't know. I just don't feel right. Don't feel well. Like, I guess it's the endometriosis. Well, she did a blood test to confirm I actually was pregnant. So that was when I was pregnant with Carter. The journey there was a lot because I had to learn about my health. I had to learn about how to reinvent myself, how to try to eat healthier and try. So, like, my weight has always been up and down all over the place because of all these different medications I've had to take to help me just to function and live like normally. At that time of the month, I was tired. I didn't want to go. I missed school like once a month when I was in elementary school, like middle school and high school, once a month because the pain was so intense. So there's a lot of things that I've learned now, and it's kind of one of those reflections. If I knew now what I know would have known then, I probably would have made some different choices. But the medical community didn't have all of those options at the time. It's pretty interesting that because of the doctor who I credit, I say she basically gave me the majority of my life back because without her intervention, I don't know what I would have ended up with or how I would have ended up. And she said that suicide rates in women who have significant amount of pain through endometriosis, PCOS, anything like that is a lot higher because nobody seems to believe them. Everyone says, oh, it's all in your head all the time, which I got quite often too. And I'm like, no, why am I feeling like this? And I remember I was in high school and I don't remember which president it was, but we were watching the State of the Union address. And I just remember like being in the fetal position and saying, I don't feel well. And so they're trying to get me to describe it. And all I said, it feels like somebody's piercing one side of me with like a spear and it's coming out the other and they're pulling it, inserting and pulling it. It was so painful. So I went to the hospital and the ER doctor just told my mom, said, oh, I see here she just wants to get out of her exams tomorrow. I know she has finals. And my mom's like, no, she doesn't. She actually has the finals. She actually wants to go to school for it, but she physically can't. And so she fought with the doctor and the doctor said, okay, whatever, she doesn't go to school. She doesn't go to school, but it's not because I'm not going to write an excuse note. My mom's like, I don't care. She's in pain. Something needs to be done, or she needs something to help alleviate some of that pain. It's been a interesting ride with the endometriosis. And even when I had a total hysterectomy, which I'm so grateful for, it was one of the best things I ever did.
Amen, sister.
I
Amen.
love, it's been wonderful. But on the flip side of that, you don't really have all those hormones. So there's other things that you have to kind of make up for as we age. Everything like weight gets to be put on quicker. And so now it's this whole other balance of how do I need to manage all of that from a decision that I had to make that actually was also dictated by insurance company. I was on a suppression medication after I had Claire and it was working really well. And then I get a letter in the mail. So this is in 2017, I think it was. And I got a letter in the mail saying, hey, we're no longer going to cover this medicine. You have 30 days and that's it. Well, I was going to get my injection, and fortunately, through the kindness of other people's hearts, they would donate extra injections at the doctor's office. And they would say to them, well, we don't need it anymore, but if someone else needs it, let us know. So, so I was able to get like 1 or 2 more doses before I had to end up having my total hysterectomy. But again, it was like the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I am so grateful. So grateful that I don't have to worry about that or have any of those other issues. But like I said, it's a trade-off because now you have to be more mindful over here on things that you necessarily wouldn't have had to be mindful over. Like, it's important for women who have total hysterectomies or hysterectomy or partial to actually lift weights because it counteracts that for bone loss and, all of this. So it's re-education, a relearning, a reinvention of how I need to care for my body now because my body isn't the same as it was when I was 16. It's not the same as it was when I was in my 20s or even after I had my first, when I had Carter and then Claire. So it's this, this constant reinvention and new information's coming out all the time, which is great. But we need to be able to be mindful and, look back and say, okay, I'm grateful for where my life, I wouldn't have changed anything that happened because I wouldn't have what I have now. But how can I have what I have now and make it even better going forward into the future? So,
So like every setback
yeah,
just sets you up for the greater comeback, right? I mean,
exactly.
I think that it's pretty safe to say that reinvention almost always comes with a dip in our confidence, because it's chartering new waters, right? It's new territory we haven't necessarily encountered before. But I think that it's about how we choose to move forward with that. And like you said, just staying positive and just learning to embrace change, which I mean, every single one of us is going to deal with at some point in our lives. Usually for me, it seems to be daily these days. But yeah, I think that just being able to embrace it and kind of roll with it is just important.
It is. And the thing is, too, that you have to be able to advocate for yourself. You have to be able, like you're advocating for people to be sure that they know what to look for and the signs they look for with ocular melanoma. Like all of that is really important. You are your own best. You are your own best ally. And people need to be able to understand that and not just be like, oh, well, the doctor says I need to go on this medication. Okay, but why? Is there any additional research done? Is there any other medications? And, there are a lot of things now that are out about, well, thankfully for the World Wide Web, you can basically find anything.
To Google.
You're right. The pros versus cons on anything. So you just have to know your body well enough. And I think some people aren't in tune with that. And I think for me, because endometriosis was one of my conditions, and on top of a couple others like ADHD and also fibromyalgia, like I have to manage all of those and I have to advocate when I need something. And sometimes that's challenging. Uh, but you can always be better than you were the day before or even an hour ago. You can always be better in this hour than you were last hour. So
It's true. That's true. And it immediately makes me think back to, well, personally, I have a daughter who has been battling, you know her. She's been battling a weight journey, that actually back at the beginning of the year took a very negative, toll on her life. She ended up going septic. When she was put into the hospital, they told us that her lactic acid numbers, those levels were critical. She was diagnosed with critical sepsis, and the doctor actually told us that if she'd waited another 24 hours, we would have been talking about an entirely different outcome. But of course, her her mentality is really what just really inspired me there, because she's always battled with her weight, and she was bullied horribly in school, and she has always just put her best foot forward and persevered and tried to surround herself with people that are positive, that don't find it necessary to go and belittle or break down or tear apart other people. And so I think that was important, but I watched her in this hospital just defy all of the odds, really. And I know prayer for us, we're very strong faith. And so there was a lot of prayers going up for her. And she went from being in the hospital with physical therapy, barely being able to physically walk 70 feet, to now, with the help of my sister-in-law, Holly, who's just been amazing. She is walking, I mean, a mile. She's walking blocks. She's going up and working out in the swimming pool, and she's lost over 100 pounds, since January. And then she went back in March with a with pneumonia. But it was very trying, and hopefully she'll be able to be a guest on our show here before too long. But it's her story is one that I think so many of our listeners, yeah, I don't battle with my weight, but there's other things that I do. And so just her courage to face this adversity head on, and just kind of drown out the noise, not listen to the negative, not, which there's a lot of that this day and time, but she just, she just decided this is it. I've had enough and I'm going to do what I need to do to take care of me. So, that's one person that just pops off the top of my head as somebody that's really she physically has reinvented herself, and she's making strides literally daily. And you know her, you've met her personally, so you can also see these changes that are happening, and it's remarkable. But to see somebody go from where she was to taking control and saying, "Look, I'm done with this. I want a new me. I want to be better. I want to be healthier. I want to be stronger." It's inspiring.
It definitely is, and I'm trying not to fight. I'm fighting back tears because I know she's awesome. She's just an awesome person, and she's so smart, and she knows a lot. And it does take people. I think sometimes to get to that point where you are like, okay, I need to make a change, and then you pivot. And she definitely has done that, and I think that her willingness to wanna come on our show and speak about it and just, get her voice heard. She has a story. Her story is remarkable, and I think it definitely will touch others. So, yeah, we need to get her on the show sooner than later.
Yeah, yeah, it's exciting. I think, in all over the world, but in our country today, it's a lot of the foods that we eat that are processed. We both have issues with gluten, and I mean, I know a lot of people have those issues. But we're not really geared for healthy eating, so that's something that we have to be proactive about ourselves. And the same thing with our working out or taking care of our bodies. I had a total hysterectomy too, so I've been diagnosed with osteoporosis already and osteopenia. So you were mentioning a few minutes ago about, weightlifting, um, building that bone back. And that's the way that I plan to do it. I have no interest in taking the drugs to do it. I'm just going to do it my way. And I know from having Maria Bill on here, who, also teaches that, and she was sharing that in her episode about weightlifting, helping you to rebuild the bone that you lose from these diseases. So I think that it's important. I think it's something that our listeners are going to really enjoy. And guys, we want to point out there, you've seen a lot of, our backgrounds with pageantry, and we love it. That's how Lindy and I met. And we've both been around it most of our adult lives. And that is a big part of our podcast. But we want you guys to know that we are much bigger than just pageantry. If you have a story, a personal story like Lindy's, like mine, like Lauren's, please reach out to us. You can email us, you can message us on social media, just let us know that you would like to share your story. We've got lots of guests that are coming up that have great, great causes that they advocate for. And they're not pageant at all. So please reach out. We don't want anyone to think it's just you have to have a title or you've got to be in a crown and banner to come on. That's just a small part of it. We're telling your stories and we want to share your stories.
Everyone has been through something, and that's what makes the world kind of remarkable because you get to see people and you can hear their stories, and you can see how they did take the negative and turn it around for something good and positive. And I do know that faith plays a lot into that, has in my journey too. But I do want to touch on something that I think is important. So I got my associate's degree in human services, so basically the study of people. And one of the classes I took was adult aging, development and aging, or a class similar to that kind of title. And part of it was talking about grieving. Most people think about grieving when you immediately lose somebody, which is true, you do. But there's also grieving that can occur when you have a medical issue that you have to deal with, when you're going through something traumatic. a loss of a job, fleeing from an abusive relationship, anything like that, because you grieve for what you thought once was, but now you have to look forward. So I do want to make sure that everyone knows that like grief is a huge part of reinvention, and you have to be able to go through those stages in order to heal and in order to move forward. And if you can't do that and you're holding on, you're holding yourself back, and you're not allowing yourself to be limitless. You're putting limitations on your ability. And there's a lot of research on that. But like I said, I know it's not something that a lot of people talk about in something about like a health journey, but you are like grief is a huge part of that. So just think about that too. And there are, I think, 8 stages of grief. And I know the main person who did that was last name was Kubler-Ross. And so you might want to read about that and see how that could possibly play into your story and where you might be in those stages so you can eventually go to healing.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that. And it's true. I think that, you know, we we think about grief, but we don't really necessarily tie that to our health, and it is such a big part of our health, our stress, our mental health. And I love that you shared that because I think it's something that we all need to remember, and I think it really just we're here for you guys. Um, Day or night, you can shoot us a message anytime. We will listen. If you don't want to be on the podcast, that's okay. We're still here for you. We just want to be able to be an inspiration and to help other people. Maybe by some of the things that we've gone through, Lindy, some of those kind of the reinvention thing again, negative things that we've gone through, maybe we can use those negative things to help you. And so that's what this is about. We are trying to crown those connections for you guys.
I always like to say you have the ability to grow forward, not necessarily go forward, but grow because wherever you are, you can always look for the positive and move forward. So I always like to say, yeah, let's just grow forward.
Excellent. Oh, I love that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, did you have any final thoughts today that you wanted to share with our listeners?
Do. So there is a famous quote. Sometimes it is related to a person, sometimes it's just author unknown. So for our purposes, we're just going to go with the author unknown. But it's your smile is your logo, your personality is your business card, and the way you make others feel is your trademark. So take that with you as you move forward and as you're waiting for our next podcast to drop and really think about how you can be that for others and then share it. Use the hashtag crowning connections and a crowning moment and all the ones that we have. Just make sure you throw them in here and use them and
Yeah.
just reach out to us. You can go to our website. We're on Facebook and TikTok and Twitter and LinkedIn. Oh, I'm sorry, X, I forgot. Not Twitter, X. All of the ones. So please, feel free to reach out and we would love to share your story and we would love to be that encouragement for you.
Yes. And we would love to be able to celebrate your comeback with you as well. And the most important thing I think is remember, no matter what you've gone through, what you're dealing with today, your story is not over. This could just be the start for you. So if our episode today lit a fire or helped you, like Lindy said, please reach out to us, share it with us. Your comeback story could be just what our listeners need to hear. Maybe it's something that Lindy or I cannot personally understand, but you don't know who's listening out there that may connect with you, which again goes back to crowning connections. So that's really what it's about. Maybe they need to hear your story or you need to be able to connect and then hear theirs. So that's, it comes full circle. And if you do have that, shoot us a DM, shoot us an email. We will respond to you and we'll get in contact and get you scheduled to come on.
That's right. And we also want to just highlight one of our amazing guests. Greenlee, who was here, and she is 15, and she had to come over so much adversity in a very short amount of time. And she's out here smiling and living her life. And, that's what it's about. Life is about making those connections. Life is about, trying to better yourself. And, if you can't at that moment, that's okay. Sometimes it's taking it minute by minute, but eventually those minute by minute will turn in hour by hour, and hour by hour will turn into day to day, and then weeks, and then months and years. So wherever you are, just know that. Just keep on looking up, keep on growing forward, and we're always here for you.
Always. I love that. I love it. And yeah, if you didn't get a chance to check out Greenlee's episode, it just dropped a couple of days ago. Please do yourself a favor and go watch her episode. It is amazing. It will inspire you. And if we didn't help light a fire today, Greenlee's episode will. So you don't want to miss that. And in closing, we just, as always, we appreciate you guys so much. We appreciate you tuning in, for sharing our podcast, for all the likes and all the comments and all of the emails. We cannot thank you enough for that. This is a podcast that was specifically built for you. Thank you guys. We will see you next week, and be blessed.